Philip laid down the flannel and picked up the TCP. 30 years he'd lived in the house in Yew Tree Road. 20 his MG had twinkled at him from its snug parking place across the street. Giles at the end of the phone, for what, 35? Longer than Shireen had been alive. Clever little orchid in the greenhouse of Tehran. But the MG would stay, and Giles could be replaced. One of the smart young men in the office would be honoured. Honoured! Of course he would. Philip would ring him up and say, "Bird tootling in a tree, what's the bugger called, for Chapter 2?" and get the answer, just as he always had. The thought was worth a song. Philip liked to carol through his TCP, bread of heaven in Welsh with his head thrown back, a special knack of his. His jaw was at its very widest when the spasm hit. The TCP gurgled down his throat, and its precise burn etching the tonsils was Philip's last clear memory. He fell to the ground and jerked as if he were being shaken by an invisible policeman. He made a series of bad plumbing noises, rusty groans and burps. Spittle leaked from a corner of his mouth. His legs thrashed, then his head, and this all went on for a very long time, as if Philip were being uncharacteristically brave, as if he were refusing to give up an answer. All the while, and evenly as a flag in a steady breeze, the radio talked about the fatwa and moved on to the weather, and then to news just coming in about an oil spill, a very large one. Of course, it was all a terrible shock for Shireen. They kept telling her so in intensive care, after she had revived Philip, carried him downstairs in a fireman's lift, and delivered him to casualty at speed in the MG, which he was not, in fact, licensed to drive. Philip was stable now, and Shireen should have a cup of tea, one with sugar, said the handsome young consultant. She should place her narrow hips on a plastic chair and smooth back her heavy, shining bob of hair, and he would draw up his matching chair and explain everything in his best, grown-up, low voice. You see, probably, the blood clot had been around for ages, bobbing around in Philip's bloodstream. Philip was 62, a vulnerable age. Did Philip smoke? Untipped. And drink? Pink gin was a strong choice. The young consultant looked like a jogger. His eyes were preternaturally bright, blue as glass. He explained that Philip's arteries might, because of the smoking, be furred and narrower than average. It must all be hard for Shireen to understand, especially just now, but "He is suffering a revolution?" asked Shireen, in her tremendously posh voice with its just perceptible Iranian R, fixing the consultant the while with her famously lucent amber eyes. "Well," said the consultant, "you could say that. Are you familiar with the circulatory system, Mrs. Preece?" "Yes," said Shireen, looking at the ceiling. "Terrifically." And so the consultant started on about Philip's clot, how it would have started as something barely tangible. "All revolutions start like that," said Shireen. "Do they not? Just a few people. A few, did you call them platelets? We need a strong tyrant, perhaps, to put them down." There was a pause. "Was Mr. Preece recommended," asked the consultant, "aspirin at any point?" "Possibly. He would never take such a thing," said Shireen. The consultant shook his head. "It's not always easy to make that generation see that drink is not a friend," he said. "His ally," said Shireen brightly. "His comrade. From the days of the Long March." "You know," said the consultant, "you should consider putting your feet up for a minute." "I think," said Shireen, "that after all, this is not a revolution, so much as a coup. We have a roadblock, do we not? This clot, it is blocking the circulation. And now—" "I think I'm losing your thread," said the glassy-eyed consultant who had grown up in Harrogate. And so he went off to fill in forms, and Shireen, who was a painter, sat looking at Philip's liver-spotted hands with the tube stuck in them, laid out by his sides like a pieta. She knew all about this. After the roadblocks comes the random firing. Rapidly the streets fill with the injured and the lost, with backfiring ambulances, with gunfire and the reports of gunfire. In moments the stormtroopers arrive and the fires start. Then the black government vehicles, the ones you'd hoped were